What's going on, guys? This is Fletch here on Ultimate Halo, and today we are going to kick off somewhat of a brand new video series showcasing how I would like to vision Halo Infinite, and certain scenarios I think would play a crucial part in the game, or just simply ideas that I think would make a great experience. So, but in a wider sense, not just in one specific feature. You'll find out, don't worry. But for more videos like this, make sure you subscribe. There is a bell button. I think that would be a fantastic idea if you hit that, and if you don't, well, Sergeant Johnson won't come back. We know you want him.
Ultimate Halo.
So as you can tell by the title of this video, I would like to discuss what a Halo Infinite mission in stealth would look like. So for those of you who perhaps are newer to the Halo franchise and haven't played many of the Bungie games, and why the hell are you here if you haven't, go buy the Master Chief Collection, you will not be used to the concept of Halo incorporating stealth. It's a run and gun, kick some ass kind of shooter, and with that said, Halo Combat Evolved gave us our first taste of this all the way back in 2001 when the mission Truth and Reconciliation dropped us off on a cliffside on Installation 04. You were accompanied by some Marines and Sergeant Johnson. You proceed to a ledge to scout out an area to sort of get a feel of the combat encounters you're about to delve into. You activate your night sight, night vision rather, and rain hell on any unsuspecting Covenant bastards. Now, that's right, you sons of bitches, just yes! At the time though, what was so fantastic is that this game started off in close quarters corridor action, absolutely ploughing your way through enemies, kind of getting to sort of grips with how the game functions in terms of its mechanics, and then from there you were placed into a wide open sandbox environment so you can tackle this game any way you like. That was the watershed moment of the Halo franchise. And then what happened then, you were put into a stealth mission, and the game intelligently knows it has a very simple gameplay loop and mechanics, but uses them in such a way that creates variety, using tonal elements and using the gameplay to keep the player engaged rather than keeping the formula the same throughout the entirety of the game itself. If you ask me though, it's always been one of Bungie's strengths when developing Halo, and as a young player at the time, it was one of the many reasons why Halo Combat Evolved grasped me over many other shooters at that time. But that would not be the end of it. Halo 2 somewhat continued this sort of theme, but in a slightly more linear environment. Now, when you stepped into the shoes of the Arbiter on Sacred Icon, Halo 2 had a very sort of different approach when it came to style, tone and feel than its predecessor, but to a degree did follow a lot of the same themes. In this mission, however, you had new mechanics to play with, such as active camouflage, which made it much more playable in a stealth mission, which wouldn't have been easy as a task in Halo 1 because it was a physical item that you would have had to pick up, and that would have been particularly effective in close quarters environments. I don't want to draw too many comparisons, but when you do compare Truth and Reconciliation and Sacred Icon, there are two things you find in common, which is you start off always in a quiet area, just allowing you to get your bearings, which is crucial really, so that the player understands where they are, what they need to do, and so they can set the tone. And tone, I know I keep using it, but tone is a key word here. Notice how every time you enter a game space, which has no background battles, just a relative peace, it will encourage the player to keep quiet throughout the mission, as causing too much destruction will cause a feeling of being overwhelmed as such. And then, without going into this one too much, because I feel Nightfall from Halo Reach utilises a lot of the same ideas as Truth and Reconciliation did, it sets an atmosphere and environment, encourages you to stay silent, and eventually builds up in pace and action, because we won't cover that too heavily, but you see the sort of general theme we're getting to. Now, we've had a brief history of Halo stealth missions, but I think before we move forward and discuss what I feel Halo Infinite's mission should look like, I would actually like to define what traditionally in Halo is a stealth mission and how it would have lent itself to Halo 4 and 5, because I think it's important we understand what one is, what significance it has, and what sort of experience it can add to an overall campaign. In summary, a Halo stealth mission is a sandbox mission that allows the player to play however they like, whether it's passively sneaking past enemies, popping them off from a distance, which is quite common usually in these types of missions, and eventually building up the tempo to a finale so that the player experiences a power trip from quiet to insane. When we look at Halo 5, these missions are sorely lacking. Overall, as mission structures, they had their strengths, mainly Halo 4 to be quite honest, but Halo 5 in particular lacked that variety. Yes, there were vehicle sections and running down the face of the Guardian, which I'll admit was pretty cool, but it was very short-lived. If a stealth mission was in a game, it may have broke up the gameplay, and might have done that quite nicely because the majority of encounters in Halo 5 were very similar. Lastly, and I promise we will get to Halo Infinite soon, I just want to talk about what a good stealth mission looks like, and if you have any suggestions, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm happy to take on what your thoughts are, but an overview of that would be a good setup area to establish the tone and the mood of the mission ahead along with the environment. Clear breaks between each environment, so the player kind of gets a choice to reset instead of just going into next area all guns blazing. So if they do mess up and want to revert back to stealth, that's very important. Varied sandboxes as well. They can allow you to encourage adaptive play, an example somewhere with various pathways and encounters so that the player can think about what their next step is as opposed to just running in guns blazing, which of course is still permitted. I'm not going to take that choice away from players. Night vision, always a must. Lastly, always having the element of the unknown. What happens if I do rain hell? What's going to happen in this next encounter? There should be always that sort of extra thought in the back of the player's mind. Okay, now I promise we are to the meat of things now. Halo Infinite has already shown us a small glimpse of what's in store with a more grounded look, classic art style, and nostalgia evoking motifs. I'm going to sort of set the premise of what I think a good stealth mission would look like in this game, just so I can set somewhat of an illustration for you. It's clear that humanity is of course on the run if you watch the legendary ending of Halo 5. Backs are truly against the wall after Cortana has pretty much knocked out all of the outer colonies and have forced a large portion of humans to submit to her rule, as evidenced by Halo Bad Blood. Although the game has been shown to take place on a Halo ring, I do think we can expect to see other planets and other human colonies would genuinely not surprise me, but I'm not saying this is going to happen, it's just for the sake of an example. Let's say Master Chief is on a human planet in some sort of rural area. I'm sort of drawing parallels to Winter Contingency on Halo Reach. It's been shown that in Halo Bad Blood, if you step out of line on a human colony, it can alert a Guardian which is orbiting that planet. Trouble is always going to come your way because Promethean Phaetons are up in the sky policing all of the civilians. It's at night time and the Chief needs to figure out a way to leave orbit without being detected, and eventually needs to approach a ship with a space drive so it can make random jumps, hopefully losing any following vessels, much like Cold Protocol, and also drawing parallels to Halo Bad Blood. That's very similar to what happened in that book to a degree. So it could be, once again, at night time on a cliffside, a small village, something along those lines. You find a sort of straggler Storm Covenant and Prometheans just patrolling. You can decide to move past them or take them out. The choice is entirely yours. From there, the encounters can progress, and some wildlife, such as in Halo Reach, the Gueta, could really mix things up. Eventually, it would be nice to see night turn into day once you find this ship, and it would manage to make more of a good atmosphere, purely to show off the brand new slip space engine, which does look fantastic, as well as the player being allowed to see some genuine progression which makes the world feel alive. I do also want to point out the change of time on the trailer too. I doubt it will be a huge thing in the actual game, but you can see the lighting quite a lot in this little clip here, and it's a mechanic that could be used and would be a perfect illustration of that actually in the final product. But I'm no game designer, I'm just throwing out some ideas to inspire you guys and the developers, so cut me some slack. God damn it! Now I'm going to go over some ideas as to what I think would improve this type of mission based on the experiences we have had from previous titles. The first thing I would like to bring up is sometimes I don't think players are encouraged to use stealth unless they're really on a high difficulty. I think there should be some consequences or outcomes for not following down a sort of sneaky method of play. I don't want to punish the player, but for example, you could trigger a boss attack or some hunters or a swarm of Promethean soldiers or crawlers, for whatever it is, just for not being sneaky. There are numerous benefits to this. It creates replay value and encourages the player to stay in that sandbox for a little bit longer, as well as giving some meaningful padding, and it allows the player to experiment with different styles of play. Even better, now I think this is actually an excellent idea, if the player doesn't go ahead with sneaky and makes a huge amount of noise, they could be attacked like something once again like the Gueta. It just, because otherwise normal enemies feel more of a chore when it's something a little bit more out of the ordinary. So I think it would almost encourage some players to go back and try it again. Another absolutely huge thing, and I've thought about this for years with Halo, but I've never really sort of took the time to express it, but it's that the artificial intelligence is so sensitive to sound in the environment. In classic Halos, it seems to be that if one enemy goes down within a certain radius of another, they are instantly alerted, which means stealth is not always viable. I would personally like to see them less receptive and narrow the field of view which they will notice a dead ally in. Finally, a utilisation of attachments and rec weapons to give context for all the ones that we see in Warzone. That would be a good start. For instance, the Whispered Truth could be great as it's silenced and we get to take enemies out with that. Even a silenced sniper rifle would be really interesting, because by doing this, the player doesn't need to make as much noise like they do in missions like Nightfall. Because if you are making a lot of noise as a player, you're not going to be encouraged to be quiet, because ultimately the feel of the game is going to dictate that. I also think a broad sandbox has been put into Halo 5 as well, so using these recs would just utilise that a bit more, and I think 343 should at least make more use of the work that they've put in. Overall, I do just want to say I think a stealth mission would be a great thing for Halo Infinite. It'd do it a ton of favours. They tend to break up the pacing in a good way, so the player can sort of sit back and breathe once they've had quite an intense session. And also, there are some of the more memorable missions in the franchise to take part in. I know I've said the word a million times again, but tone has a huge impact on a game. It breaks things up, it engages the player, and also another reason why I'm desperate for the Flood to come back, because they are one of the best tools the franchise has to do this. So I know you are listening, 343, so I'm just saying, take notes. But to you, the audience, I am curious to think if you think that 343 have considered this, with them not overly doing this in the past. I have spoke many times to the team, and I know that how creative they are and how talented they are, and sometimes simple is the most effective. I would like to sort of extend the opportunity for you guys to write in the comment section a few things really. So what would you like to see in a Halo stealth mission? Is it important for a Halo game to have one? And why, and exactly what would you like to see from one? I'm really curious to tell me what you guys think. For more videos like this, make sure you stay tuned to Ultimate Halo. You can follow me on Twitter, which is @FletchUH. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye!
Subscribe now to Ultimate Halo for more unfriggin' believable Halo content.